Equanimity.
One of the issues that I feel that's the core of rage is the fact that we as men are usually isolationists. You know, we go internal when things go wrong. So we want to be able to build that community and have somebody that we can talk to, somebody we can let some steam off with, and it's very beneficial. So that's what the Men of Equanimity is. It's just a group of men who can find one or two in the circle and just kind of let's check in, let's do some check-ins every now and again, and then we can go some places and let some steam off and relax and compete and
That's
talk
good.
about stuff. So yeah.
That's good. Yeah, I like that, man. I love that action. You just get busy. You got work, you got family, and so you don't even have the space to process because you got bills to pay. It just becomes a buildup.
Mhm. And then you explode.
Then you explode. Then it becomes uncontrollable. Then you're in damage control. So
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Okay, well, let me kind of get formally started. I'm gonna introduce myself for all of you who have joined. Thank you guys for taking the time just to listen to this conversation and engage and interact with us about this very important topic of rage. Now, rage is an extreme emotion, but we have buildups, we have anger, we have frustration, we have low tolerance, we have all the way down to indifference and disrespect. So there is a range there. It's not just about rage, but we want to talk about all the pillars that are underneath it. So we can kind of monitor ourselves and not get to the point where we're absolutely losing control. So I am Jermaine Harris. My background, real quick, is I was an econ professor for 20 years at Long Beach City College, my alma mater. I am now a mental health specialist, helping families deal and cope with the mental stress and trying to bring them back together and have a little bit more love in their lives. So that's my main focus. And I have put together the Men of Equanimity, and it's a group of men who are just trying to figure life out and live a more peaceful, healthier life, whether it be mentally, spiritually, and through our bodies. So that's a little bit about me, and I would like to introduce to you guys Dr. Nick Hardy.
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, thank you so much for the invite, man. I'm glad to be here. Just this space. I mean, I wish we could do more of it. It's needed. Just a little bit about myself. Super high level. Dr. Nick Hardy, man, got a PhD, University of Houston, social work background is in counseling, master's in social work as well too. I'm a licensed psychotherapist, actually LCSW, licensed clinical social worker. I run a private practice here called Hardy Behavior Health. It's me and I got a team of three other therapists as well who are all licensed. And so, man, we just supported a number of different issues. I only work with adults, but I got people on the team who work with kids. We have, older therapists that works with, 65 and older population, 55 and older population. And so we try to cover all spectrums and really just create that space for people, to kind of get the help that they need. Mental health is kind of taken off a little bit, I would say, in the past 10 years. But truthfully, I mean, I got into this probably about 15 years ago. And so, super thankful to just even be called to this space because I've seen so much over the course of almost 2 decades, specifically with men. And so I love just, man, being able to just have open, honest dialogue and get to see who we are and what we're dealing with behind the scenes because that's where the real work happens. So thankful to be here and even dive into this topic as well too. So
Yep. Thank you for showing up, and thank you for all your work and commitment into this space. Like you said, last 10 years it's been a growing um, popular event to actually seek mental health. And in the Black community, we are always a little slow on that. So, and then to be Black men, we're all in this space, and I would like to encourage everybody who is on the call to really look at mental health as something that is just like the gym. We're so concerned with how our body looks and how strong we are physically, but in actuality, what's really going to carry us is a strong spirit, strong mental, and we got to work that out as well, just so we can be better men for our families. So I really appreciate everybody joining the call, and as well as the people who are doing the work. I see the pastors are on the phone. I see the mentors are on the phone. I see there's people out there that have little brothers that they take time and pour into their little brothers. So we're all doing the work, and we're all being worked on, right?
Hmm.
When I got into mental health, my first client was myself.
Hmm.
And so I'm continually working on myself to get better. And that's where I like to stand next to iron, because I get sharp that way. So I appreciate you guys. I want to start out with asking Dr. Nick this one question. What is rage, and what are some common reasons or sources of rage?
Yeah. I was that question I was thinking about, and just in my practice and just in general, I try to keep things as simple as possible because that's what we remember. So when it comes to rage, I want you guys to think about this. It's essentially when we lose control. All right. You're gonna get angry, we get upset, but when it gets to the point that we're no longer in control, when we start acting in ways that don't align with who we are, and what's in our best interest, that's most logical, and it's just an outpouring of negative emotions, that's when it kind of gets to that rage, And so when you start thinking about what are the common causes of that, well, that's where we kind of open up a can of worms because truthfully, a lot of times it's a buildup. It's a buildup of unresolved issues. Sometimes it's a buildup of not feeling heard. I was working with a couple not too long ago, and guy just blown up, kind of he didn't jump on his woman, but he was going off, and he was just saying like, man, and I apologize, I was wrong, but I've been saying this is important, and I just been getting shut down, shut down, shut down, shut down, shut down until the point that he just exploded. Now, that's not necessarily justifying it, but it does explain where it came from, and a lot of times that's the case, all right, because we don't have those outlets. And so you just think about your drains, you just keep putting stuff in, and eventually it's going to come out, and it's going to come out in a way that's unhealthy, it smells bad, and it's not going to be good. So that's one of the biggest areas that it comes from, is just that buildup, but then also too, stress. We carry a lot, all right? We really do, from work, bills, family, if you got kids. My dad used to always joke and say, man, there's a lot that comes with being a man. You got, pest control, you got the yard man, you got the, you just go down the list, security guard, you got the chauffeur. And we used to joke, but when I got married and had kids, it started to make sense how we carry all these different things. And with that comes a level of stress sometimes that we don't address because we kind of wear it as a badge of honor. It just is what it is. Got to get things done. Hey, you know what? I ain't got time for that. And it's true to a certain extent, but that stress a lot of times, again, similar to a lot of the unresolved issues that just build up, that stress weighs on us. And so when we're triggered, emotions, get out of hand, then we react in ways, again, that are just out of control and just don't align with who we are.
Excellent. Yeah, definitely. Uh, I've been there. I don't know how many men on the call. I don't know how many men on the call have a personal relationship with rage. Hopefully, it's an old relationship and you broke up with her. But if I look at what is my relationship to a certain concept, and look at it like a relationship, because some people with some relationships you need to bag up off of and get some distance from, and some of them you need to bring a little closer. And I understood that by me being Mr. Cool
Mm,
and relaxed, and I got it all under control, and I had my mask, and it was perfect inside and underneath. Every annoyance was just building up. And so
mm,
all it takes is one person to step on my brand new Jordans and I lose it.
mm,
It's our culture, in our culture as African American men, to look like we got it together, that we're unbothered. But it's bothersome just walking down the street.
mm,
But we got to put on this. So we have to be real with the fact that what's on the inside and what's on the outside are always different. So where do we go and be ourselves and kind of let loose? I think if I can break it down in three different areas, I would say pride,
mm,
isolation, and not asking. Right. So we all know what pride is, right? Because my guys, I got to show up like I'm the man's man. I got to show up. So I can't just let it all out, you know. But when things go wrong, I find this: men only talk to you if they think you might have an answer for them.
Hmm.
If they don't think you have an answer for them, then why are they gonna say anything, right?
Yep.
And we don't understand that half of healing. Women understand this completely. Half of healing is not just trying to find the answer; it's about just talking about it. That's half the healing, right? And that's why women always want to talk. And they even want to talk before they even know what they want to talk about, because they understand the concept of, if I can talk to somebody who is a safe space for me, that alleviates a lot of the pressure. So
Hmm.
we as men, we can't sit there and try to figure it out with our own brains, on our own minds over and over, and but we don't open up, because that's where the rage can just pop out. And
Yeah.
and lastly, the last one was isolate, was not asking, right? Ask questions, like reach out and ask a mentor or somebody who's been through it, because you'll find out that there's somebody that's in your circle that's been through exactly what you're going through.
Hmm.
And you know, it could take you 3 days to get the answer if you talk to them, or it could take you 3 years to try to figure it out on your own. So that's what we have community for. When it comes down to our romantic relationships, sometimes my wife be talking and I don't understand what she's saying. So
Hmm.
I can either get frustrated or I can ask and continue to ask until it makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Or just be patient and quiet, and eventually it'll make sense to me. But when I explode and blow up, that's when everything hits the fan, right? And now we're dealing with a whole nother issue. Um, let me ask you, doctor, how could one actually grow their patience, which is required to deal with a lot of the stresses that we're under? Where does patience come from, and how can we farm that in our backyard?
Yeah. So I think a couple of things. So number one, you need to get you some rest. I mean, it's as simple as it is. Just a good night's rest is can be game changing, because if you aren't getting rest, your body natural defenses when it comes to things that are going to contribute to you being able to have patience in times when you need patience are just not going to be there. You're going to be reaching for a tool that you just don't have. All right. So you got to start with the basics, which is just taking care of yourself. All right. But then next and you said something earlier that I just thought was so good. And from a relationship perspective, relationships a lot of times are like molecules. You take this person and you put them with this, and you can get a different chemical reaction if you take this and you put it over here. So you really got to know some of the things that are triggering for you. Because if you see that something is triggering, then you can kind of proactively put some safeguards in place to kind of create some distance. But if you continue to just expose yourself to something that's triggering, it's going to be very difficult to have patience in a certain 'cause it's too late, not that you're at the mercy of the circumstance, but it just becomes that much more harder. All right. So I say get some rest. But then I also think, having some different outlets. You talked about the isolation, which is spot on. Isolation doesn't always happen intentional. A lot of times just life pulls us in ways that are isolating. You get focused in on job, you get bills, responsibilities, and then you look up and you hadn't reached out to your friends, you hadn't called anyone to check in on them, you hadn't done anything for you, and you just on an island. You just on an island. And so when you start thinking about these outlets that would, allow you to have more patience and create a buffer, is not there. And so again, you just don't have the patience. You're not getting rest. You're isolated. You don't have outlets. And then here it is, you triggered, and you're trying to, be patient, but you haven't been doing the work in order to be patient in certain times. But those are some things that I would recommend. Obviously, at a in the moment, always taking some deep breaths is important. Just allowing yourself to just literally. I mean, we used to tell kids this in school, talking about counting to 10, but there's a lot of research that goes into just the importance of allowing oxygen to get to our brain and breathe. And so we're just not reactive to certain things. And so that's a in the moment type response. But truthfully, I think the majority of the work is going to happen before you're even triggered, to just have that patience and be kind to yourself. So
Nice. Excellent. Appreciate that answer. Especially the deep breathing is something that we tell our kids all the time. I just learned a new technique. I can't recall the name of it. It's a weird name, but um, it's the double breathing. It's like you take the deepest breath you can, and when you're finished, take one quick more breath in, and
mm-hmm.
then release slowly. Uh,
Mm.
so it expands your lungs because when you get mad, everything in your body restricts.
Strict, it does.
You know how your voice gets real high. You start, what you do?
Hmm.
Your
Hmm.
voice is restricting, your blood vessels are restricting, your oxygen. You're not getting enough oxygen into your brain, so you can't think because right now you're on mad mode. You're on survival
Hmm.
mode. So in order to bring yourself back down, put oxygen in your body because oxygen is the fuel of the body. In order to calm yourself down. So it's like I really like this new technique of taking a deep breath, and when you full, take another suck in because you're expanding your lungs, you're getting extra, and then you're taking your mind off of other stuff you're thinking about. You're going inward inside your body.
Yeah.
One thing that we practice at the Men of Equanimity is mind, body, spirit. I
Hmm.
have a philosophy that everyone is a three-layer cake. So if you're taking care of one part of you, or if you're taking care of two parts of you, I can tell you which part of you is going to destroy you,
Hmm.
right? So if you're good on offense and you suck at defense, what do you practice on the off season? Defense, right? So you got to look at the weakest link in you and work on that. So we're trying to devise some ways to address our mind, our body, and our spirit, and make sure every day we're getting 1% better with all that, and not let don't be this big buff dude with real skinny legs.
No, 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 not at all. Not at all. You can't do that.
Yeah.
As you were talking something, and I said this, alluded to it, but I want to name this, especially when it comes to patience, is you self-awareness. Like you need to know when your cup is full. Like you really do, because that is going to serve as like that gas light that comes on that says, "Hey, you got about 50 miles left. If you keep driving, eventually it's going to stop." All right. And so if it's true for our cars, the same is true for us. Like you can keep going, you keep going to work, keep doing everything business as usual. But at a certain point, your patience is going to be naturally going to decline because you just haven't put the gas in the tank. And so again, you got to get ahead of this.
Mhm.
Otherwise, I'm telling you, it's going to be super difficult to not respond in ways that are hostile and not congruent with how you want to show up as a man.
Yeah, excellent. As a business owner, I don't know how many of you guys are out there are business owners, but if you're a businessman, you have a business plan. And this I tell people all the time when I look at their business plans, it's like, all right, so you have to understand not just your operations, but you have to understand the cost of your operations. And you also have to understand what is your exit strategy. And you also have to do risk assessment so you can mitigate risk with insurance. Right. So in your three-layer cake, you have to understand which one of your three layers is going to mess you up. For example, the flesh, the body, doesn't calculate consequences. Right. Right. So the mind, if your mind flips, I mean, you turn your mind off. There's no more consequence. There's no more risk assessment because rage turns your mind off and you get all in your body. And now
Mhm.
your body is going to handle the situation, but your flesh does not calculate consequences. I'll break your face right now, but I might end up doing 10 years for it, right? There's consequences, right? So we have to understand how do we calculate consequences? And in the three-layer cake, mind, body, spirit, the spirit is the one that can easily calculate consequences. All right. So depending on your religious beliefs and how you believe you interact with the universe, your mind can be switched off when you hit that point. Your body can react, but your spirit is the one, especially if it's connected to a higher source, that knows humility, right? Because the reason why we need a spirit, why we need Is why we need God, is so that we can submit to somebody that's above us. When my dad was alive, he was the man. When he passed away, I was in trouble because I was arrogant enough to think that I was equal to my professors. There was nobody above me when my dad was gone. So I took my butt to church because I knew I needed somebody above me, somebody that I can be held accountable to. And then I can learn how to submit myself, because when you're mad and you want to go, you have to submit. You're not going to submit to this dude that's threatening you, but you should always be willing and able to submit to God, depending on how strong your spirit is. But if you have a weak spirit and your mind can easily be shut off and you allow your flesh to respond, you're in trouble, because your flesh cannot calculate consequences. Right? So just wanted to throw that out there. Everybody has their own different belief system, but once you figure out what your belief system is, then you start to design a lifestyle that can get you to the direction that you want to go to.
Mm-hmm.
And that takes risk assessment. You got to offshoot some risk. You have to make wiser decisions, and then try to stick to your game plan. And this is where we all fail. We all have a game plan. We know how we have to execute, but we have this area that we're weak in, right? And the area that we're weak in is the area that's going to get us.
Mm-hmm.
So if you look at yourself and all your skill sets, the things that you're strong in and the things that you're weak in are going to destroy you. One of those are going to destroy you. The things that you're mediocre in, you'll be fine. But man, I'm so strong at XYZ, man, I could do this all day and all night. I could do this until the cows come home. But I'm neglecting my wife, or I'm neglecting the kids, or because I'm so focused on what brings me joy, because I'm so good at it. So just because you're good at something doesn't mean it can't destroy you mentally, physically, emotionally, financially. So understand, looking at yourself as to what your strengths are and what your weaknesses are. And now you have an idea of what can destroy you, and then you mitigate those risks, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Now, that makes perfect sense. You talked about the accountability piece. I think that one is big. We have to allow ourselves to be held accountable, because if I don't know what's going on with you, and this goes back to the isolation and how it works against us, and the pride too. Because if I'm not open, if I'm not transparent, and again, you're not going to be open and transparent with everybody, nor should you. But you need to have a couple people in your immediate circle who know the real you. And you don't have to sugarcoat it. You can say, hey, this is where I am, this is where I'm struggling. And you feel safe enough and comfortable enough. One, that they're not going to go out and tell your business. Two, they had your best interest at heart. And three, they can tell you what you need to hear, even if you don't want to. Man, it's a quote I heard years ago that said, a good friend will ruin the friendship to save the friend. you know and that really stood out to me, because you need that person in your life who, again, they're not trying to ruin the friendship, but they would to save the friend. All right. And that embodies accountability. But again, I can only hold you accountable to the extent that you allow me to, because if you come around and everything is good and you got the facade, and or you all just been busy and you isolating, man is a man. I'm not finna, I ain't gonna jump in your business too much. So it's gonna be somewhat limiting, but that's super important.
Yeah, definitely a good point. I like to pose a question just so we can kind of contemplate this. When you form a friend group with a group of men, how do you insert accountability and non-judgmental at the same time? That's the hard part, because I want to be around my boys and I want to be able to show them my good and my bad, my strong and my weak, without being judged, but I still need to be held accountable.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all about matter of how sensitive I am, really, because one person can say something to me and I can take it as accountability, or I can take it as, "Are you judging me?" And
Mm-hmm.
then I go into my isolation, and there goes the friendship.
Yeah.
So I have to have tougher skin to hear the truth from my buddies, but my buddies got to let me know, hey, you messing up. I'm still your boy. I got your back. I'm rocking with you. But let me just point it out to you. This is the area that can destroy you. Because
Mm-hmm.
next week, I'm going to be telling him what can destroy him. And it's not tit for tat, and I'm getting you back. Well, you did this, and you. It's like fighting with your woman, and you keep piling on. Well, you did this, and you did that. You did, and no problem is solved, but every problem's on the table. With friends, I just go home. I won't hang with those brothers anymore. And now
Yeah.
I'm looking for a group who has my same weakness, so I'm not judged in my sin.
Mm-hmm.
And then you start to spiral at that point. So one of the questions is, how can we have a brotherhood that has accountability but doesn't feel judged, where I can be safe in this space? And
Yeah.
it's a very delicate balance.
Yeah, it's a real it's a and I tell you, man, you're blessed if you can get three people like this in your life,
Mm-hmm.
because this is it is tough, But one of the things I'll say is you have to have the social capital built up. All right. And again, if because I have to trust that when you're holding me accountable, you're not judging. All right. That's sometimes a matter of perspective. But if I have the depth, if the depth of the relationship is at a certain point, I trust that if you say, "Hey, man, you tripping," like I
Mm-hmm.
trust that you're coming from a good place, all right, and I trust that you really are saying this to protect me in some way, all right. But it's not going to happen if we don't have the social capital built up, all right, and that social capital comes with, man, I mean, everyday conversations. You ain't got to talk to them every day, but I'm just saying, like, hey, man, how you doing? What's going on? Like, there has to be an investment into the relationship. And if you aren't investing in the relationship, then it's going to be hard to get out of it what you possibly could. All right. And it's a two-way street, it's reciprocity in that. So, another thing too, I think there always needs to be and I said this before, but I think it applies here as well. There needs to be a level of self-awareness, because I'm less judgmental. The most judgmental people are often not that self-aware, because we all imperfect. I mean, let me
Mm-hmm.
name that. Again, if I'm self-aware, my issue may not be your issue may not be my issue, but trust me, I got issues. Okay. And I think sometimes being aware of my issues doesn't mean that I'm okay with your issues, but how I approach it is with a certain level of grace and compassion. Because again, you may be dealing with something in this season, I may be dealing with something in a different season, but nonetheless, this circle of life never fails, right? And so, but you won't approach it like that if you lack the self-awareness. You'll approach it as if I'm here and you're here, right? And so your posture is different.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Excellent. I really appreciate that. Building that capital with brothers is very important for us. I think every man needs a group that are on their level, and they need a group or a mentor that's they're striving to be like.
Mm,
And constantly looking for people to pick their brain and figure out. That's how you strengthen up your weak points,
mhm,
by trying to find somebody who can lead you by examples, which is difficult, but it takes a, hey, how you doing? No, no,
mhm,
no. How you really doing? Like, what's
mhm,
going on? Ain't nobody around, just me and you. And if I can lead by, this is something that I'm struggling with, man. I need your opinion, or I need a listening ear. This is what I'm going through. And by being vulnerable, it
mhm,
allows the other person to understand that when I do try to correct you, I'm not correcting you out of, oh, I'm perfect and you got to get your thing together, because we both know what we're dealing with. So
mhm.
to have someone like that in your corner is golden. And if
Yeah.
you have another group of people who are you're teaching and pouring into, whether it be the boys on the block, or the team that you're coaching, or your son's friends, understand that you are a mentor and you have to hold yourself accountable in what you show them. And
Mhm,
not that you have to be perfect, but you can use your failures as a life lesson for them. So that gives your failures a lot of value, right? And it takes the pressure off of your failures, and it puts it on their success. And now you're looking outward. It's like when Adam and Eve were running around the garden eating naked, they didn't feel naked until they ate the fruit of knowledge, and all of a sudden they turned inward and started looking at themselves, and then shame came upon them. So we can't live in shame, But the best thing we can do is to constantly look at who can I pour into, who can I help. So I take the focus off of me and focus on helping other people. So having those groups is I think is really important.
Yeah.
I would like to open
When
it
you
up.
mentioned about the opening up, man, I want to just highlight that because that's super important. Again, I'm not saying that you tell everyone everything, but sometimes how you facilitate that accountability and foster a community where you can do is just by being open. Like if I'm like, hey man, I'm struggling in this area, I'm almost giving you permission to tell me when you may be struggling. But if that's never the case, if I'm always, yeah, man, everything's good, great, man, life's great, man, we making money, we doing this, like, all right, cool. Like without saying it, I'm saying you don't have anything that, I can relate to because everything is good. And again, I'm not saying that you need to have some bad going on. I just think if you live on this earth, you're going to have something you're struggling with, right? And so naturally, I think as we open up and become transparent in that, it does foster a healthy two-way street.
So if I hear you correctly, me not being perfect makes me the perfect person
Mm,
to be a friend to somebody else. I don't
100%.
have to wait until I get my degree. I don't have to wait until I banish all my sins before I step up and be a leader amongst men. I can be a leader amongst men and say, you know what, this is what I'm struggling with. This is what I'm going through. And, so now I become human. I become approachable. I'm not going to be judgmental because you know my dirt too. So, um, because sometimes we wait until we have everything together before we have a party at the house. We
Yeah.
don't have a party at the apartment. We don't wait till we get to the house. But you
Yeah.
know what? You need brotherhood. You need camaraderie and support through your journey
Hmm.
because success is a mind state. It's not a destination. So that's a great point. I like that. I appreciate your contribution on that one. I like to open the floor up to anyone who has any comments or any questions. If there's any men on the call who wants to talk about how they have dealt with rage in the past or building friendships so they can have that safe brotherhood. Anyone have any comments?
This is this is Brandon. I'm just pretty much I got on a little bit late, but I'm just kind of just soaking in the conversation. I think um, I think the topic is a really great topic, considering that I would say not just this season, but the last several seasons. Um, I'm at a stage in my life at age 43 where I am learning how to deal with my emotions, and because growing up I didn't really know how to, looking back at things now, I didn't know how to address my emotions growing up. I think a lot of times I was silent. um I held things in, and I think partially holding things in was good, but then there's also a side of it that's not good. And the reason why I say that is because there could have been things that took place that happened, or I could have put myself in certain you can put yourself in certain situations to where your mouth can get you in trouble or your actions can get you in trouble, and then there's you have to deal with those consequences. But I think I had sound judgment not to say anything even though something bothered me, because I knew that if I said it in the wrong way or if I came off in the wrong way, who knows what could happen. But at the same time, it, it wasn't good. It's not good when you're constantly not saying anything, and things fester up in you. Um, yeah, because like you said, you can be a ticking time bomb at any time. But um, I haven't had many of those cases, but I do know that just because I haven't had those blow ups doesn't mean that I still don't get frustrated with the fact that I'm still working on being emotionally grounded and learning what that looks like for me as a man,
Excellent.
as well as learning from others. Like, I mean, it really is a process.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you for sharing that, Brendan. I really appreciate that. Two quick thoughts that come to my mind. Brothers that are really kind of quiet. Sometimes they will get with a romantic partner, and they will dump. They would just be the most talkative people in their person that one relationship, but so quiet outside. So I think that's a beautiful thing when you find a partner that really you can let your hair down and just be natural and be yourself with them, and have that. Hopefully it doesn't create because either you're going to be too quiet in your relationship or you're going to talk a lot, and that could be an issue. So have that right balance. Which leads me to the second thing is like you can write your memoirs. Right now I'm on the 55th chapter of a 100 chapter book that I'm living right now, and I have past failures and past successes, and I can write that down, and I can talk about where I'm at right now, and then I can make some notes for what I want in the future and how I want to do it, and see that arc of the story incline where there's a peak at the end where I become the hero of my own story.
Mhm.
Writing it down is another form of communicating it and letting it out, because you actually take it out of your head and you put it down on paper, and it frees up space in your head. And then you can look at it and you can start to correlate. Well, that happened to me at 12 and that happened to me at 21. There's a pattern here. And now you're closer to acknowledging and understanding where you're at in your walk. And so that helps you decide what's chapter 56 going to be like. So, yeah. Um, Anything to add to that, Nick?
Yeah, man, the only thing, first of all, I appreciate you sharing. And, it's interesting because a lot of times is we sometimes what is a survival works against us later on in life. And so you think about maybe not opening up and not sharing. Like that sometimes is what we had to do to survive certain environments growing up. I'm not saying that's the case for you. I don't know, but I do know a lot of times how we are conditioned is based out of survival, and we don't transition, as we kind of evolve in life. And a lot of times we're still, and not intentional, it's just unintentionally, what we've grown accustomed to. And so, but what used to work may not work in this season of life that we're in right now. And so, doing different things, looking at what used to work differently is always important. Just like in a business, you have to evaluate how you run it periodically, because yes, it may have been successful, uh, you know, a decade ago, but Blockbuster is out of business now. So we streaming movies differently. I mean, it's changing, and so is life. Life is always changing, and so we need to be changing in ways that are productive and healthy for us too.
Excellent. Yeah, definitely. We definitely need wise counsel. And sometimes we look at fools and we don't walk away from fools, you
Hmm.
know, because everybody needs an angel to tell them a word from the higher power. You have to be amongst people who need to hear something that you may know. So
Yes.
don't think you're too good to be around certain people, because that might be your calling, right?
Mm.
So surround yourself with people that you can help, and surround yourself with people who can potentially help you. And don't try not to isolate. And this might be three people, right? And just have those three people, because your wife, she has a limit too. you know,
Yeah.
my mentor said, he overshared with his wife. He told her everything, and now he had to try to figure out how he's going to manage all this stuff that he told her. So we need our boys. We need our friends, and we need our romantic partner. And there needs to be some boundaries there as well. So let me open up. Are there any other questions or comments? Anything that anyone else would like to share?
This is Shakim, if you can hear me.
Yes, sir. What's going on, sir?
Good, sir. Just got on a little late as well, but glad this topic is brought up, because it's a topic that's need to be brought up as far as rage and patience. I think patience you can get through prayer and meditation, and that's how I've been doing it personally. As far as rage, I kind of controlled it on my own. I used to have a relationship with it, but we broke up, I would think. Um, But thank you for the invite. And Doc, I thank you for being on here as well. I look forward to more of these conversations.
I
Yes, sir.
appreciate that.
Sometimes we got to break up with her.
Hey, sometimes, yeah, sometimes we, and we know sooner than later. We just sometimes, for
Yep, yep,
reasons untold, we hang in there. So,
yeah. So
it's good.
rage sometimes is attached to other wounds in our life that you push
Mhm.
this button and it reminds me of how my mother used to talk to me all those years as a kid, and then I got this grown woman telling me, talking to me a certain way. It's not really what she says in the moment. I'm also triggered by all the repressed anger and issues that I have to deal with my mother. So we have to kind of understand where it's coming from, but we have to also know that are we sensitive and we're wearing our emotions on our sleeve because we feel insecure and insignificant and we're trying to defend our right to be here, or are we just giving power over to people where we care about what they think too much, right? So that patience is really saying, I don't really care what you think about me, that's not my business. That's, you're not going to enrage me or upset me because you don't know how to drive, right? I'm not going to have road rage because I'm happy that I know how to drive better than you do, right?
Yeah,
So giving that grace for people to be stupid, without feeling like you have the authority to correct them, is huge,
yeah,
you know?
yeah. I had a client one time. He was telling me some things that his wife was saying about him, and I don't think she should have been saying them. I think she wasn't. The intent wasn't to build him up. But I asked him. I said, but are they true?
Mm,
And he said, no. And that's sometimes what we have to anchor ourselves in is our own truth, all right, and not allow what we hear in the world around us to kind of move us this way or that way. Like, is it true? And sometimes we are responding because it is triggering, and sometimes we don't know if it's true, and we're trying to prove that it's not. But I think, man, when that confidence is really anchored in who you are as an individual, and man, that's not me. Sometimes we don't allow what people say to get us off track to the point that we're out of control. All right. Now, again, that doesn't mean that you just subject yourself to people saying and doing anything. But if you're around someone that is saying some things that are triggering for you consistently, you need to find somebody else to be around. Or you need to distance yourself from that situation.
Yeah, definitely. Excellent point. Jelani put in the notes, he made a comment about this false sense of self and how you present to the world in one way, but inside you're something different. And so the question is, when you look in the mirror, which one do you see? Do you see the mask or do you see who you are, in real life? And if you take the time to actually, just put down the mask and really look at yourself and all your flaws, it could be extremely painful.
Hmm.
I liken it to a midlife crisis. Since I'm 55, I've went through my midlife crisis, and my explanation of that experience is you get to the point where you are so far from who you thought you were going to be
Hmm.
or what you project you are, that you start to feel, I'm living a lie. Basically, by the time I was 50, I was supposed to have this, I was supposed to have that, I was supposed to have this together, and look at me. I'm nowhere near what I thought I was going to be. And that's heartbreaking to understand that you have failed at the man that you thought you were going to become. And so you get into this crisis mode and you start to do irrational things in order to circumvent or to make up for or to hide or mask. So we can have these crises at any point where when we're looking at what we project and who we really are and see the difference in them, and what do we do with that emotion? We've been lying to everybody all day, every day. And when we come home, are we going to lie to ourselves? How do we say, you know what, I'm going to just stop lying? I'm gonna just live in my truth. I don't make that money. I'm barely making it. My health is failing. My relationship with God is obsolete. Let me just be real with it, because the first step to any healing is the acknowledgement. So you don't have to tell the world. Maybe you have one person you tell it to. Maybe you tell it to your memoirs, but you gotta live in your truth. And because you know what, when you were 21, you thought you were going to be a millionaire by 30, but guess what? You were never 30 before.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't know what 30 even felt like, let alone what $1 million was. So you set these goals for yourself, not understanding that there's racism, there's competition, there's people who got Ivy League educations, there's all these different battles that you have to go through. These women that you got to find your way through. You had no idea what manhood was, but you were setting goals for yourself with no history to structure it. So when you get through it and you say, man, this is muddy, this is dirty, this is harder than I thought. Let me keep this mask on and let people think that I'm doing, what I say I want to do. But the worst lie that you could ever tell is the one that you tell yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where our healing starts. And I'll defer to Dr. Nick to figure out what the next step is after we
Yeah.
acknowledge.
Yeah, well, I think you spot on, man. I mean, I tell people this in counseling, man, you can lie to me, just don't lie to yourself. All right. But it's liberating. All right. It's liberating to look in the mirror. And again, not all bad, because I think sometimes we have difficulty being honest with ourselves, even on some of the positive things, as well too. And
Mm,
so we have to look at it holistically. But I do think in those areas that we need to grow in and need to change, man, being able to say this is who I am. One of the first steps in AA. People talk about, hey, look, man, my name's Nick and I'm this, right? And people have mixed, feelings about it, but there's value sometimes in being able to acknowledge where you are. Especially as you start thinking about where it is that you're trying to be. I'm in Houston right now, and if you were driving somewhere in Houston, first question they're gonna ask is, where are you at? All right. And so again, if I were lying, telling them I was somewhere I wasn't, because that's where I wanted to be, the direction to get there is going to be off. And so you have to sometimes look in the mirror and say, no, this is where I'm at. I'm really struggling with this. I'm having difficulty with this. This is what I bring to the table. I got some great strengths, but man, this is some areas that need improvement. So,
yeah. Oh, that's good. It's called the praise sandwich, right?
mm,
Before I smack you in the face with the truth, I'm going to compliment you. I'm going to tell you that truth, and then I'm going to praise you again. It's a praise sandwich.
mm,
Never thought of it until just now that I need to do that with myself. I need to tell myself that I am a good dude,
mm-hmm.
but I could work on XYZ
Yeah. And,
because
and
I'm
these
a little
and,
bit.
and these aren't mutually exclusive either. And that's what makes it nuanced because yeah, I mean, hey, am I a good dad? Yes. Could I be a better dad? Yes. You know, it's nuanced. And so we have to kind of, expand our thinking because it's not always black or white.
Yeah, yeah. So one thing that I tell people that homelessness, I look at everything as a range of emotions. So homelessness, the emotions of homelessness is shame and guilt, right? Why don't they call their family and go because they're ashamed and guilty for everything that they did to let everybody down or whatever. So they're just in their bubble. You can also be emotionally homeless. You can have all the wealth in the world, but if you don't have anybody you can connect with, you can be homeless emotionally. So, how do you admit to yourself that you're not who you want to be, and not have the shame and the guilt attached to it? You know, you got to give yourself that's the best gift that God has given us is grace. Because I bet you most of us on this call, if God gave you what you deserve, you would not be on this call right now. He has given you
Facts.
the grace to wake up and go and get it every day, a new opportunity. So the one thing we can, if we only learn one thing from God at all, it's how to give grace to the people, God, man, woman, child. That means that the obligation to give grace. The higher you up on that list, the more the obligation it is for you to give grace. It's not about submission and power and control. It's about, I need to give more grace. And so, but it also extends to ourselves. We have to give ourselves grace and say, you know what? I messed up on that. I'm human. I'm going to try again tomorrow. It's no biggie. Keep it pushing. Right. So I feel that I'm a good dad. My son asked me, he's 34. He asked me, Dad, do you think you were a good dad? I was like, ooh, that hit me in the gut. You really want me to answer? So he was about 25 when he asked me that. I said, you know what? I would say that I was a good dad, but I wasn't a great dad. He was like, well, what's the difference? Why? What's the difference? And I said, I think a great dad would have loved your mother in your presence so that you know that the woman you love the most and the man that you love the most love each other, and you can watch that. I did not give you the opportunity to see that. So the best I could be is a good dad. Do I feel shamed and guilty for not doing that? Did it work out? I can sit there in my head and talk about my failures and keep it running on repeat, but it doesn't do me any good. You know, I have to give myself grace. I have to forgive myself, and I have to correct it so that my current wife, I don't suffer the same consequence, right? Because that's why we make mistakes in the first place, is to figure out what was the lesson to be learned from that. Once you learn the lesson, now you can let it go and give yourself grace and move forward as a better man. Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, I'll jump in. My name is Adi Diggs. I'm grateful to be with you all tonight. Very quickly, as you're sharing, I'm really enjoying the conversation, man. I'm learning to be more aware of rage in my life through vulnerability. And how I got to that place is, oddly enough, I have another dear brother who went through a divorce, and in trying to support him and whatnot, he disclosed to me that he was going to live an LGBTQ lifestyle. And he asked me essentially, can we stay friends if I choose to live a life that's alternative to the norm and whatnot? And I had to really ask myself the hard question of, can I do this with a brother who's been a good friend to me for so many years? Can I go through this life with him, or do I start to kind of push away from him? I chose to stay and commit to that relationship and to grow with that brother because I wanted to prove to myself that I could love on someone, even in spaces where we may have some differences that might compromise some of our traditional alternative thoughts process about male relationships and whatnot. So I chose to love on him, be present with him, and do that. I'm bringing up in this conversation because his vulnerability to disclose that to me, and then to live that in front of me, and me to strive to live that, to support him in that space, it began to open me up to a level of vulnerability in my own personal life, with my friends, with my family, with my other brothers, my other sisters, in the appropriate context, just kind of really challenging me to be better. And that level of vulnerability allows me to ask the question you alluded to, Brother Jeremiah. What's really going on inside of me? Why am I really upset? Why am I really angry? And it was all through this, oddly enough, this relationship of trying to support and do life with my brother who was living an alternative lifestyle, and not just kick him to the curb because toxic masculinity would teach me to do that. And learning to do that, man, through that vulnerable space with him, I'm learning to be more vulnerable with myself, and that's helping me deal with the rage that exists in myself. And so it's just this wonderful thing, constantly admiring how he models vulnerability and striving to do it myself in my own life, helping me deal with the rage that I sometimes come up with in my life. So I just wanted to share that real quick.
Yeah. I see Chad has his hand raised.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, so to piggyback on that, I actually had a similar experience. I had a good brother confide in me in the same situation, and I kind of wrestled. I didn't really wrestle for too long, but it was funny because another mutual friend kind of hit me up about it. It's like, oh, what do you think about that brother coming out? And I thought about it. I said, I said, well, if he's my biological brother, if our biological brother said, this is my life, this is where I'm going, would I reject him? And I said, nope, to myself. And I told the other friend that. So why would I do that to any other person I call brother? So that's something, questioning myself. So if I consider myself, you're my brother, I may not agree with it or feel comfortable with it, but that's something I had to deal with. Because, like I said, if that's my biological brother, I'm not going to turn my back. So I treat it the same. I don't play with the brother terminology lightly. So if
Mm.
I consider you my brother, you're my brother no matter what. So I'm glad I did make that decision because he's been one of the best friends no matter what he does, as far as that. It's not too many brothers you're gonna find at this age that are gonna be reliable and dependent. Well, as a good friend. So I'm just proud that I've made a decision. But yeah, I just jumped in because I heard that comment. But I was telling Jermaine actually a little earlier, I failed the rage test from God today. So it's good to be on here. Um, my thing is I can't remember who mentioned it earlier about, kind of being the person that's kind of quiet and people think you're just mellow. And that's cool. You hold things in. But I think what I need to do is also let people know what is bothering you or what they could be saying that's offensive to you instead of just taking it on the chin, shaking on the chin, and then blowing up later on. So then it also gives them a marker indication and boundaries for yourself so they can know, okay, I know that's the button I don't need to push with this brother. You know what I mean? So instead of just sitting there and just being calm, because for me, I'd rather blow up on somebody out in the street versus blow up on my kids or my wife.
Mm.
So for me today, I was like, all right, I feel good. I'm gonna let you have it because you be working my nerve. And it's something that it was just like it wasn't like a one time thing. It's like something reoccurring, and something I explained to him, and he's like, now you're trying to take things and trying to, dig at me with some information, things we've talked about. So that's why I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna fail this test today. So,
Yeah.
but I mean, reflecting, I was like, yeah,
Yeah.
I still feel
Man.
like I should do better, but. And then my little third point is just as far as when you talked about the social, I would call like social, I don't know. You said was it capacity, social build up like that equity with friendships and
Yeah,
things like
just the
that, right?
social capital. Yeah.
Yeah, social capital. Yeah. So yeah, I think we do. That's very important, but I think it's kind of tough, because we think about friends from our formative years, and a lot of that wasn't by choice. You kind of built it up because you're going to school with these people every day. They're in your neighborhood, you're seeing them every day. Versus now, we're at the point we have to really get intentional forming these friendships. At this age, is a little difficult, and we also, I think, another thing, maybe something I deal with, maybe other men, is just that fear of rejection.
Mm.
So you think, should I share this, or am I really accepted in this group, or am I
Hmm.
not? So that boundary of rejection.
Yeah,
Mhm.
man, you're spot on, and you're 100% right. As we get older, man, having those strong friendships becomes that much more difficult, right? I mean, again, one, we just don't have time, so we do have to be more intentional, and we kind of get set in our ways, routines of life and things like that. And it's interesting because it becomes more difficult, but the necessity of it becomes that much more important as well too. And so we have to kind of find that balance. But
Yeah. Excellent. I appreciate you guys both sharing that story. I have a very similar story. But the thing was that I already knew. He went around telling people. I thought everybody already knew, but he came to me and said, I gotta talk to you. He asked me the same thing, and I'm like, man. And so I pose a question to you guys. It's like, who benefited the most from that relationship going forward? It's like, you both said that this guy blessed me in so many different ways with this friendship that if I would have walked away from it, I would have lost out on these benefits. And at the same time, you don't know who in your life God is going to use to give you words of encouragement.
mm,
You don't know.
true.
So when you're isolated, you're isolating yourself from God because God speaks to you through other people.
Mm,
9 times out of 10. You think you can hear him, and maybe you can hear him, but can you distinguish your voice from his? Right. But when he says something and then somebody else says the same thing in a different way, and somebody else all in a 2-3 day period, that you got the right people around you giving you this good information. So one thing that I like to say is we have to be able to accept what we don't understand.
Mm.
A lot of our rage comes from just being confused, and we don't understand something, so we don't know how to react to it intellectually, so we get upset. Just like gay bashing. That's just I don't understand it, so it grosses me out and it gets me mad and I flare out and then I
Mm.
act out of it. But if your son comes to you and says, now you got a real choice. Here's the thing. I have to learn how to accept things that I don't understand. Because if I accept what I don't understand, what's going to happen is that my understanding is going to increase and I'm going to grow
Mm.
spiritually and as a man. But if I always reject those things that I don't understand, I'm actually cutting off my source of knowledge. Right. So we look at an opportunity to grow and lean in and like, okay, wow, what are you going through? How does that feel? How did you come out to your family? And then you kind of say, how can I support this brother in this? You're growing as a person because now you're putting yourself in a position to be uncomfortable, being comfortable, being uncomfortable. And that's where growth comes from. So, um, any other comments? I know it's 7:32. I want to be respectful of you guys' time. This was earmarked for an hour. I could talk all night because I love to learn from you brothers. But any final comments that anyone wants to make before we close out?
I'll just say thank you again for the format.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. All right. All right, brothers. Dr. Nick, you have any closing words before I shut her down?
I don't, man. I appreciate you guys for just coming here, man, on a Thursday and opening up and just, man, creating this space for each other. It's good stuff.
Yeah, definitely. Cool. All right, you guys. I like to just close out with some words of encouragement. I think it's in James chapter 1, 5, and 6. I believe it says that if you ask God for wisdom, He will give it to you freely. And that wisdom, the difference between intellect and wisdom, is patience and grace.
Mm.
So we have intellect and we think we know everything, and we think we got it down, but the patience in knowing when to say, what to say, how to say, and when to be quiet is where the wisdom comes in, right? So when you have that patience and that grace, then there's no room for rage anymore, right? Because you're going to allow people to live their own human experience as you watch and learn how you can support them in their journey, as opposed to correcting everybody right now because it doesn't fit your narrative. So I encourage you guys to allow people to live their own human experience and give them the grace, give yourself the grace, and find some brothers that you can really hang out with. In closing, the Men of Equanimity, we're going on our annual men's retreat, August 1st and 2nd to San Diego. We're going to jump on a Sprinter van, go out there, grab some hotel rooms, do some K1 racing, some golf, a little bit of golf lessons, have a good time, do some Tai Chi. I'm into Tai Chi, meditation, and prayer. It'll be a beautiful time. In September, we do a silent retreat for brothers who are really trying to elevate. 36 hours, no food, no talking, in the mountains, communing with nature. It's not 40 days in the wilderness, but it's 36
It's
hours
close.
in San Bernardino. Right? So we invite you
Yeah,
to
if
hang
it's
out
40 days, then y'all gonna
for
call the
next.
ambulance while you out
Yeah,
there.
yeah. I'm gonna eat somebody's leg. So yeah, let's find our village or create this village and build up each other and support each other. And one last thing I would like to say before I close out: think of somebody in your life that's in your phone and reach out and call them in the next 24 hours. Some brother and just say, "Hey man, how you doing? Just want to check on you, give you some love, make sure everything's good," and then just be quiet and just listen. Because you never know. Um, when my wife was about to walk out and leave me, she got a call from somebody she hadn't talked to in 3 years, and she called her and said, "God told me to call you and said, stay, be
Mm.
still." So there's power in the spiritual realm that we need to harness. We need to be a part of that conduit to give word, and we never know how God's going to use us. Let's just be open and not isolated, so God can use us for His glory.
That's good.
All right. I appreciate you guys. I hope to see you guys all real soon in good health and wealth. And take care of yourselves.
Thanks, guys.
Peace.
Equanimity.